हेलो एंड वेलकम। आप देख रहे हैं मनी मंत्रा और द मनी शो का खास जुगलबंदी एपिसोड जो हम हर फ्राइडे लेकर आते हैं ईटी नाउ स्वदेश पर। और इस शो के जरिए हम न सिर्फ आपको बेहतर फाइनेंशियल प्लानिंग की राह पर लेके जाते हैं बल्कि आपके लिए बताते हैं सही आर्थिक रणनीति और आर्थिक आज़ादी का रास्ता। लेकिन आज काफ़ी इंपॉर्टेंट एपिसोड है एलेक्स, क्योंकि हम बात करने वाले हैं सबके सपने की, जो उनकी ज़िंदगी का सबसे बड़ा लाइफ गोल होता है वो है घर खरीदना। और इसमें खास बात यहाँ पर यह है कि मौजूदा स्थिति में हम सबसे कम इंटरेस्ट रेट या ब्याज दरों पर बैठे हैं एलेक्स।
Absolutely. And in fact, like you said, it is the biggest dream that an individual can have, the owning of a house. In fact, in certain communities in India, this is a prerequisite before you get married, right, Kavita? You have to buy a house. So we'll talk about when the right time is to buy a house, what you need to bear in mind. Like Kavita said, the interest rate scenario is actually quite positive right now if you are in the market for a housing loan. So we'll talk about all of those aspects. Let's get our experts on board then. We've got Adhil Shetty, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Bank Bazaar, who's going to give us a sense of the housing loan picture. And we've also got Hemant Rustagi, who is joining us and who will tell us the personal finance side of things. Wiseinvest Advisors is the name of his firm. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking the time. I want to start with you, Adhil, because you're really going to give us a perspective on the interest rate scenario. We are in a situation where interest rates are lower than they've ever been, but you've seen bond yields climb, not just in India, but globally. Earlier in the week, you had the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank of India keep rates unchanged. So that was a breath of relief for a lot of people who are borrowing. But what's the scenario right now? How are loans priced?
So well said, Kavita and Alex. We are seeing the lowest rate for home loans that we've seen in the last 15 years, so almost one generation. At Bank Bazaar, right, we're seeing that in terms of the big lenders, HDFC currently starts at about 6.7%, but the lowest rate we're currently seeing is actually from Bank of Maharashtra, which starts at 6.4%. Now, one must keep in mind when I mention these lowest rates, right, it's not applicable to everyone. It depends on you having a good credit score. There is additional, 0.1% discount if you're a woman borrower as part of the application. So you actually need to do a live check to figure it out. I think broadly the sense is rates are between 6.5% to 7%, depending on the price of the property, how much loan amount, what your credit score is. I think this is a good time for people to consider taking a loan. I think the repo rate loan ensures that if the rate stays flat, you continue to pay a low rate. If the repo rate starts moving up like what we're expecting later in the financial year, then your rate will reset every 6 months. But floating rate is what most people are taking. It's 90% of the market. These are the current situation that we're seeing.
बखूबी समझाया आपने आदिल ने, लेकिन एक चीज़ जो बहुत अहम है यहाँ पर हेमंत जी, अक्सर हम देखते हैं घर खरीदने का जो लक्ष्य है, सपना है, वो हर किसी का होता है। मुझे लगता नहीं है बहुत सारे लोग ब्याज दरें कम होने का इंतज़ार करते हैं। हालांकि पता नहीं इसको लेने के लिए इंतज़ार करना चाहिए या नहीं करना चाहिए, वो आप हमें ज़्यादा बेहतर समझाएंगे। लेकिन जैसा कि आदिल ने कहा कि अगर आपको घर खरीदना है तो मौजूदा समय बहुत अच्छा है, आपके पास सबसे कम ब्याज दरें हैं, फ़ायदा उठा लेना चाहिए। अब जिस तरह से हम एक और ब्याज दरें बढ़ने के सिलसिले की ओर बढ़ चुके हैं और आने वाले वक्त में ये हम होता हुआ भी देखेंगे, क्या आपको लगता है कि किसी को अगर होम लोन लेना है तो अभी ले लेना चाहिए? लेना है तो क्या फिक्स्ड ले या फ्लोटिंग रेट पे ले? और हाँ, आदिल ने एक और चीज़ कही जो कि बहुत अहम थी, रेपो रेट से लिंक्ड आपको अपना लोन देखना चाहिए। ये एक पेचीदगी है जो एक आम घर खरीदार को बताना बहुत ज़रूरी है।
कविता, देखिए ऐसा है, जब हम होम लोन लेते हैं तो बेसिकली एक बहुत लॉन्ग टर्म कमिटमेंट है। जाहिर सी बात है कि जब हम लोन लेते हैं तो काफ़ी बड़ा अमाउंट होता है और शायद हमारी जो लार्जेस्ट एसेट जो हम बनाते हैं अपनी लाइफ में वो है, तो बड़ा लोन होता है, उसका हमारे फाइनेंशियल उसके ओवरऑल सिस्टम पे भी काफ़ी इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है। बट आई थिंक जैसे हम बात कर रहे हैं कि हम लोएस्ट इंटरेस्ट रेट में हैं 15 साल में, तो एक अच्छा समय है डेफिनेटली लेने का। बट अगर आप जैसे हम बात कर रहे हैं कि 90% से ज़्यादा जो मार्केट जो लोग हैं वो फ्लोटिंग रेट लेते हैं, तो वो एक शुरुआती पॉइंट हो सकता है। यस, ये जो समय था कुछ 1-2 साल का, डेफिनेटली हमने देखा कि इंटरेस्ट रेट नीचे आए तो उससे लोगों को फायदा हुआ वहाँ पे। बट अगर अभी आप देख रहे हैं, जैसा मैंने कहा, आप 15, 20, 25 साल के लिए लोन ले रहे हैं और अगर आप फ्लोटिंग रेट ले रहे हैं, तो जैसे हम बात कर रहे हैं कि ये जो आपका जो रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट है वो लिंक रहता है एक्सटर्नल बेंचमार्क से, वो है आरबीआई का रेपो रेट। तो अगर उसमें कोई बदलाव होता है तो आपके इंटरेस्ट रेट में बदलाव होगा। और क्योंकि ये जो मॉर्गेज है ये काफ़ी लंबी कमिटमेंट है और इसमें आप काफ़ी सारी साइकिल्स देखेंगे जहाँ पे इंटरेस्ट रेट ऊपर जाएंगे या तो नीचे जाएंगे। तो शुरुआती समय में डेफिनेटली इंपॉर्टेंट आप देखें इंटरेस्ट रेट कैसा है, लेकिन ये समझ के चलिए कि क्योंकि बहुत लंबी कमिटमेंट है तो ऐसे साइकिल्स आएंगी जब भी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसीज अनाउंस होंगी आरबीआई के ओवर ए पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, जहाँ पे वो चेंजेस होंगे। दूसरा आपने कहा कि इस समय पे क्या करना चाहिए कि फिक्स लें या फिर फ्लोटिंग रेट लें। देखिए, हम सभी चाहेंगे इस समय पे कि क्योंकि लोएस्ट इंटरेस्ट रेट है तो हम चाहेंगे कि हम इसके ऊपर लॉक कर लें अपना इंटरेस्ट और यही लोन हम पे करते रहें अगले 15-20 साल तक, जो भी हमारा टेन्योर है होम लोन का। बट सच्चाई है कि आपके पास फैसिलिटी जरूर है, आपके पास फैसिलिटी है कि आप फिक्स रेट पे भी लोन ले सकते हैं, आप फ्लोटिंग रेट पे भी ले सकते हैं। लेकिन अगर आप देखें तो बहुत कम लेंडर्स हैं जो ये फैसिलिटी आपको देंगे, पहली बात। दूसरी बात, जो आप इंटरेस्ट रेट पे करेंगे फ्लोटिंग रेट के मुकाबले में वो ज़्यादा है, वो 1 से 1.5 या 2% भी ज़्यादा हो सकता है। तो ये आपको इस चीज़ का ध्यान रखना है। उसके अलावा जब आप अगर प्री पे करने जाएंगे तब भी आपको वहाँ पे प्री पेमेंट चार्जेस देने पड़ेंगे। तो आई थिंक ओवरऑल आपको देखना होगा कि हम जो फिक्स में लेते हैं वो पहली बात पॉसिबल है कि नहीं। जैसा मैंने कहा, बहुत कम लेंडर्स हैं और वो भी कुछ साल के लिए देंगे आपको। उसके बाद आपको रिकंसीडर करना पड़ेगा कि आपको फिक्स में करना है या फिर फ्लोटिंग में करना है। और अगर आप फिर से वहां से कन्वर्ट करते हो फ्लोटिंग रेट में, फिर से आपको कन्वर्जन चार्जेस पे करने हैं। जबकि अगर हम फ्लोटिंग रेट की बात करें तो वहां पे जैसा हमने बात की है कि एक्सटर्नल बेंचमार्क से लिंक है, अगर वहां पे बदलाव होगा तो यहाँ पे भी बदलाव होगा। और जैसा हमने कहा कि साइकिल्स ऐसी आएंगी जहाँ पे ऊपर और नीचे इंटरेस्ट रेट जाते हम देखेंगे। तो मुझे लगता है कि आज के समय में फ्लोटिंग रेट डेफिनेटली बेटर ऑप्शन है, कि ऐसा नहीं है कि हमेशा इंटरेस्ट रेट ऊपर जाएंगे, इंटरेस्ट रेट नीचे भी जाएंगे। और सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि उसमें प्री पेमेंट का कोई भी चार्जेस आपको नहीं लगता। तो आई थिंक ओवरऑल अगर हम देखें, और शायद यही कारण है कि मैक्सिमम जो लोग लोन लेते हैं वो फ्लोटिंग रेट को यू नो।
Absolutely. You made a fair point. Adil, I'll come to you on this in terms of what Hemant was just talking about. It may be possible, and like he was saying, there are few lenders that are opting for allowing you to take a fixed rate loan. In terms of the prepayment of a loan, it said that the most opportune time to prepay a loan is the first 5 years, because that's when a large part of the interest rate is paid. So a couple of questions over here. Would you say that it does make sense to go for a prepaid or a fixed rate loan if that is available to you? And is there truly a fixed rate loan throughout the tenure of 15 years? Or like Hemant said, is it only for the first few years and then it resets to a floating? And the second is, how quickly should you prepay your loan?
Got it. So Hemant was completely on the ball. Very, very few fixed rate loans exist out there. And even when they do exist, right, they cost 1 to 3% more. So frankly, if you ask me, right, it's not a popular option at all. But let's look at some pertinent questions that you asked. So the first answer is, the RBI has a regulation which says there is no prepayment charges on a floating loan. So the minute you take a floating rate repo loan, there is no prepayment charge. Now, the same rule does not apply for fixed rate loan. So very often, right, if you've taken a personal loan or a car loan, which typically are shorter tenor, 3-year, 5-year loans, those are fixed rate loans, but they come with the prepayment fee. So if you look at your contract, there'll be a 1% fee, 2% fee, and that is a lot of money when you want to prepay it. Here's a simple rule of thumb, Alex. I think we end up and we should take a floating rate loan now. When you take it, bargain to get the best deal. So like I said, let's say there's a range of 6.5 to 7% because you have a good credit score. And this is something that's really popular at Bank Bazaar. Everyone wants to improve their credit score. People who are at 700 want to go to 750. People who are 750 want to go to 800. So bargain, get the lowest rate possible. Now that locks you into repo 4% plus margin. But that margin is fixed for the tenor of your loan. Secondly, right, if you have excess money, you get a bonus this year of 2 lakhs. You get something special coming in terms of inheritance. Make sure you use it to prepay your loan. Because when you prepay your loan, right, the outstanding principal goes down. And like you said, it's more in the initial period. And automatically, right, your interest outflow goes down dramatically. So one thing Hemant mentioned, and I should call it out, is when the rate goes up, which will happen, your EMI will stay constant. but your tenor will be automatically extended by the bank. So if you have a 20-year tenor, it'll go to 23 or 25-year. Now your interest outflow is increasing. So rule of thumb, if you have excess money, use it to prepay your loan. You cannot get that kind of return risk-free in the market.
राइट यहाँ पर हमें अब ये जानना है कि रीपेमेंट करने की रणनीति आपकी क्या होनी चाहिए, लेकिन इस बीच हमें रुकना होगा एक छोटे से ब्रेक के लिए। ब्रेक से जब लौटेंगे तो हम जानेंगे हमारे एक्सपर्ट से कि अगर आपको अपनी लोन की अदायगी यानी उसको अगर जल्दी चुकाना है तो आपको किस तरह की निवेश की रणनीति अपनानी चाहिए, और जो पहली बार अपना घर खरीद रहे हैं उनको किस तरह की रियायतें उनके ब्याज दरों में मिल सकती हैं इस छोटे से ब्रेक के बाद। वेलकम बैक टू दिस जुगलबंदी एपिसोड, जहां पर ईटी नाउ स्वदेश पर आज हम करा रहे हैं आपको घर की खरीदारी, और स्पेसिफिकली एलेक्स को बहुत सारे घर खरीदते हैं दरअसल बॉम्बे में, तो उनके लिए भी ये एपिसोड काफ़ी काम का है। ध्यान से सुनना। आदिल, कमिंग टू यू नाउ, बिकॉज आपने अपने पहले जवाब में कहा है कि रीपेमेंट आप कर सकते हैं और जितना बेहतर हो आपको जल्दी रीपेमेंट की स्ट्रैटेजी एक अपनानी चाहिए। तो अब ऐसे में जो लोग रीपेमेंट के बारे में वाकई सीरियसली सोच रहे हैं, मुझे ये बताएं कि उन्हें किस तरह से रणनीति अपनानी चाहिए। मान लेते हैं हम कि उन्होंने लोअर इंटरेस्ट रेट पर ब्याज दरें जो हैं वो ले रखी हैं और 5 साल के अंदर जितना मर्जी चाहे वो रीपे करना चाहते हैं। किस तरह से इन्वेस्टमेंट पोर्टफोलियो को डिज़ाइन किया जाए ताकि उनके पास EMI चुकाने की रकम भी हो, वो पैसे भी हो, और साथ ही उनकी ज़िंदगी भी चलती रहे।
So in terms of planning for their finances, I think it's very important, firstly, to plan for obligation. So the first thing we advise people to do is whatever EMI you have on your home loan, EMI on your car loan, credit card, please pay that off first, right? Because that's an obligation. And when you don't pay it, it leads to all kinds of subsequent problems like affecting your credit score, affecting your eligibility for future loans. After that, what we tell people is, keep a little bit of money aside for an emergency corpus in case there's some emergency in the family, to make sure that's taken care of and your insurance is taken care of. Because both of these, you need it when things go wrong and you shouldn't be found wanting. Now, what's left after that, right? We ask them to use for their discretionary purposes. This could be, for whatever they need to do in their life, and also in order to enjoy a good lifestyle. So I think the general advice is take care of your obligations first, because these you cannot avoid under any circumstances, and it will affect your future in terms of credit score. Second, plan for the worst case, like an insurance, emergency fund. And lastly, what you have after that, right? Use that for your lifestyle and for your investing and saving for the future.
Absolutely. Let's take this point a little bit further, Hemant. I want to ask you this, because a lot of people go into buying a house with the mindset that this is an investment, this is a fixed asset that is not going anywhere. And so they think that this loan that they're taking is, in a sense, an investment that they're making. Now, they also use the advantage under the old tax regime of getting that deduction. So that's a double benefit. But having said that, sometimes, especially when they're buying homes in the NCR or in Mumbai, where the value of property is so large, the loan becomes very large, the EMI becomes very large, and as a result of which, they don't have very much saved over to save for posterity, to save for their retirement. Is that a trade-off that can be done, or is that something that you should avoid at all costs?
Well, Alex, while I totally agree that buying a home is very, very important, because that's our aspiration dream and that gives you some kind of sense of security. But it's equally important that you do not ignore your other long-term important goals, especially I'm focusing on the long-term goals, which is, it could be your children's education, could be your own retirement. So I think it's very, very important to budget for your home loan. And I think make it a part of your overall investment plan. What happens there is when you're following a goal-based investment process, you kind of list your goals that, okay, I want to buy a house, and for this, because there are two things you need to do here also, that most lenders will give you, say, around 90% of the value of the property, correct? And the remaining 10% has to be arranged by you. And then apart from that, you have to pay stamp duty, okay, and registration charges. So I think make it a part of your investment plan and then see how much money you require for each of the goals. Now, what it does for you, it tells you basically that this is all that you have for 3 or 4 long-term goals, including the house. So it gives you an opportunity to either realign your goals. I mean, relook at your objectives in terms of whether it is a duration of the investment, whether it is in the corpus that you need to generate. I think it's very, very important because you can't be committing so much money for your home loan that you start ignoring your other long-term goals, because even those goals, especially if you look at retirement planning, you require a large corpus for that, and that's equally important, and so is children education. So I think it's important that make it a part of your investment plan, see wherever you need to kind of realign, see where you have to compromise, and at least give yourself an opportunity to do that, rather than ignoring everything and then going and committing something which you will find it very, very difficult to service. And as Adhil said very clearly, that what happens there is if you're not able to repay your loan, it affects your credit card, credit score. So I think it's very, very important to make it a part of your investment plan and make sure that you're allocating your resources in the right proportion to all your important goals.
आदिल, लेकिन अब थोड़ा उन लोगों की प्लानिंग करवाते हैं जो मेरे ख्याल से आने वाले 1-2 साल में घर लेना चाहेंगे और उसके लिए उन्हें लोन लेना पड़ेगा। देश की तमाम दुनिया की तमाम इकॉनमीज़ ब्याज दरें बढ़ने की ओर बढ़ चुकी हैं। हम भी कुछ महीनों में इसी को ही ज्वाइन कर लेंगे, सिलसिले को ज्वाइन कर लेंगे। लेकिन अब जिनको घर लेना है, जिन्हें लोन लेना होगा, उनके लिए तैयारी मौजूदा होम लोन बायर्स से या होम बायर्स के मुकाबले ज़्यादा होगी, है ना? तो अब अगर मैं एक पोर्टफोलियो डिवाइड आपसे मांगूँ, जहाँ पर आप मुझे ऐसा बताएं कि आपका जो होम लोन है, क्योंकि आप ऊंची ब्याज दरों पे शायद आप घर लेंगे, तो लोन के लिहाज से उसकी अदायगी के हिसाब से इतना % आपको लोन के लिए रखना चाहिए, इतना अपनी बचत में और इतना अपने निवेश में। एक आइडियल पोर्टफोलियो बढ़ी हुई इंटरेस्ट रेट सिनेरियो में लोन के लिहाज से क्या होना चाहिए, आदिल?
I think if you're planning 1 or 2 years in advance, it's a good start, firstly, right? You have some time to think about it. Like Hemant said, I think the first thing to watch out for is the bank will only give you 80 or 90%. So if you're buying a 50 lakh loan, right, you need to get a corpus of 5 or 10 lakhs to get the down payment done. So first start thinking about creating that corpus, number one. Number two, right, this is a time to make sure you're improving your credit score. This is very, very important, and it's easy also. If you have a credit card, we tell people at Bank Bazaar, please pay it back in time. If you have a personal loan, pay the EMI in time. Start increasing your credit score to above 750. Thirdly, right, it always helps in terms of getting the loan amount to have a co-borrower. So if you have a spouse and both of you have salaries, if you apply together, you can get a larger eligibility. If you maybe apply with a parent who has an income, maybe you can get a larger eligibility. Start thinking about your co-borrower. Typically, what we recommend, right, is in terms of your EMI obligations, try and keep it to about 30 to 40% of what your disposable income was. So you can then do what Hemant was saying in terms of your insurance, which is critical, and in terms of your long-term saving, and you also have what you need to manage your lifestyle.
Okay, that's a fair point. Hemant, I'll come to you on this last one, which is a bit of a contentious topic. Which is, where does buying a home, if at all, fit into an asset allocation strategy? Because real estate, everyone knows, is an asset that Indians absolutely love, maybe even more than gold. But a lot of the times, because of the scale at which it is reached, you're talking about homes that are now 2 crores, 2.5, 3 crores for something that's pretty basic in Mumbai, for example. How does it fit into an asset allocation strategy? Should it be considered an investment?
Well, not really. I mean, look, if you're buying a house that you're going to be staying in, I'm not talking about investment purpose. So clearly you have to look at it differently. Like I said, I think the most important thing is that if your dream is, your aspiration is to buy a house for yourself, of course, like I said earlier also, that it gives you a sense of security and to the family. So if you're looking at it from that point of view, it's purely, I mean, it's an investment, of course. It's an investment which appreciates over a period of time. But this is not something that you realize as long as you're alive and the family is living in that. So I think it has to be looked at in that aspect. That's why I said you make it a part of your overall investment plan and make sure that you're not overcommitting yourself. Make sure that you're not compromising on other goals. I'm sure, as you rightly said, everyone would want to buy a house, the best house, and in the place where everyone feels happy about. But the fact is there is a price that you need to pay for that. You have to look at what is your ability to repay. The last thing you want is take a loan and you're not able to repay that. So I think keep that in mind, that if you're looking at it from the investment point of view, it's a different thing altogether. Okay, otherwise I wouldn't even consider it as a part of my asset allocation, because I know this is something that I need to buy for my own security and my family's security. So I'm buying that. And then I'm focusing on my other financial goals, which are my children education and retirement. So I think you have to look at picture in totality and make sure, like I said earlier, that you're allocating resources in the right proportion to all these three important aspects of your life.
तो कुल मिलाकर यहाँ पर सार यही है कि अगर आपको घर खरीदना है और उसके लिए आप लोन लेना चाहते हैं तो मौजूदा समय बिल्कुल सही है। वेल एलेक्स की जो सिलेक्शन है मेरे ख्याल से सबसे महंगी जगह पर होगी, तो उनको शायद तो लोन लेने की ज़रूरत भी नहीं पड़ेगी, है ना एलेक्स?
I'm going to stay on rent for at least another 8 years. I'll write this down and give it to you.
चलिए, लेकिन हम दोनों ही मेहमानों का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, आपने समय निकाला और दर्शकों को उनके होम लोन पोर्टफोलियो के लिए मदद की। और एलेक्स, इसी के साथ ईटी नाउ स्वदेश पर द मनी शो और मनी मंत्रा पर हमें भी इजाज़त दे। मिलेंगे आपसे अगले हफ्ते। नमस्कार।